Chapter 46 Lord of the Castle is back. 7th bonus chapter of the week. Dreadfort Castle. POV of Domeric Bolton. After 3 weeks of travel, Domeric and his men finally reached Dreadfort. The first thing he noticed upon coming back home was the increased amount of ambient magic in the atmosphere. He had no doubt it was the work of Leaf and Ash whom he'd left in charge of the Godswood. Once they returned to the castle, his people gawked when they saw him, Varco, Raxa, and Walton riding huge direwolves while another direwolf walking with them. He made saddles for their direwolves after they arrived at Last Hearth and purchased some saddle materials to prevent suspicion. So they could ride them easily now like any other mount. The castle folk already knew Grim, but seeing 5 huge direwolves side by side was something so majestic that they couldn't forget for a while. Well, he couldn't blame them. After all, his direwolves were alchemy creations and bigger than the adult direwolves at the True North. Not to mention they were faster, stronger, more durable, and agile than normal direwolf. Basically, they were war machines that wore the skin of direwolves. But they didn't need to know that. To the others, they were just big, majestic direwolves, and that was a good thing. After his aunt hugged him for a while, he met her with the golden-colored direwolf and told her that from now on the direwolf would be her companion and her protector. She turned her head to him with lightning speed, and there was an expression on her face saying, "Are you serious?" "No, I am Domeric, not serious," he wanted to say to her, but he doubted anyone in this world understood that joke. Maybe after he resurrected Sirius, that joke would appear in this world too. That would be hilarious to see. So he just nodded to his aunt and said, "I didn't name her yet. Thought that you want to name her yourself." "Thank you. I will name her Bethany, the same as my sister's, your mother's name. She will remind me of my sister and you every time I look at it," she said with a radiant smile on her face. Maybe even more radiant than the shiny fur of Bethany at the moment. So a memorial name then. Truthfully, it was way better than what he expected from his aunt. He thought she would name her something like Shiny or Gold. On the other hand, that stupid Walton named his direwolf with the name of Muddy. What a waste. He should name him just like the others. Anyway, what's done is done. His aunt held a large feast for him to return home from his expedition safely. Once the short feast ended, he went to the giants and talked with them about a suitable habitat for them. And after a few hours, he gave them a good amount of land in the lonely hills along with a steady supply of food until they were able to set themselves up in their new home. Suffice it to say that he had to create armor for them soon enough. After all, despite being 14 feet tall, they were still vulnerable to arrows and spears. And he didn't want them to die so cheaply when he eventually took them to war. Wearing a frost steel armor that was imbued with featherweight charm would definitely keep them safe from such things as well as allow them to move around without any difficulty. He would also commission some large swords, war hammers, and shields for them. Just thinking about what kind of damage they could do on a battlefield gave him goosebumps. Yup, he definitely had to create some magical armor and war hammers for them. The other thing that came to his notice was the fact that the blacksmiths had gotten used to the blast furnace as well as the water-will-powered hammer. And because of the constant supply of good quality steel, they were now able to mass-produce swords, shields, armor, and spears for the Roman-style legion that he was about to train in the near future. He had now enough armor and weapons to equip an army of 6,000 men easily. That was a bit of a bummer because he didn't even have that many soldiers in his army at the moment. So, it was decided that most of his blacksmiths would now start creating equipment that would benefit the farmers and other small folk, as well as steel materials required for ongoing and planned constructions on his lands. And any weapon and armor made by them would be sold to the other houses of Westeros and Essos. He could also use them as a gift to other lords to improve his relationship with them and gain some favors from them. After all, these were scarcer and more valuable in the north than in southern lands. The greatest thing about this was that the armor they created was not only sturdier than the ones created by other blacksmiths, but they also took far less time to be made thanks to the water-will hammers. This wouldn't stop him from selling those things at an expensive price, but he had no doubt that he could easily create another industry focused solely on smithing in his domain. But for now, he needed to start creating the army that he would need to protect his prospering domain. After all, the wealth you can't protect doesn't truly belong to you, does it? He knew this fact very well, and that was the reason why he was trying to be as inconspicuous as possible in this world at the moment. Otherwise, why wouldn't he use his magic and hide his identity as a wizard from most of the people? Because he wasn't strong enough. If he used his magical powers, he could win against a small army, but could he win against a 100,000 men army? Not so likely. And even if he won in some way, he would lose his loyal men, His land was razed down during the battle and he had to start over. No, that wasn't a smart thing to do. If the king and lords of houses saw him as a threat, they would do everything to kill him and loot his land. No, he had to wait and bide his time. In time, he would show his land's strength to other lords piece by piece while improving his relationships with them. So, they wouldn't see him as a threat but as a strong ally. He didn't wish to conquer more lands at the moment anyway. More lands meant more resources but also meant more land that he had to develop and make prosperous. And he didn't need that kind of workload at the moment. For now, he needed to develop his land to make it his capital city and his logistic headquarters in the future. With a modern city in his hand, in the future, when the time is right, anything would be possible, right? Chapter 47 Shocking News from the Wall. Winterfell Castle. POV of Robb Stark. Robb Stark was sitting in his father's solar and learning how to rule the north from him when they heard a knock on the door. "My lord." Maester Luwin's voice came from outside the door. "Come in." His father called out and the old maester entered the room and gave him a small nod before he walked up to his father and handed him a missive. "Letter from the wall?" his father asked, and Maester Luwin nodded. "Yes, my lord. A rider named Yoren just arrived from the wall with this letter." Maester Luwin said. "Rider?" his father asked. "Why would they send a rider and not just a raven?" "I'm afraid we'll only find out the reason once we read their letter," Maester Luwin said, and his father gave a nod before he opened the letter and started reading it. And the more his father read, the more incredulous his expression became until he became curious about the letter too. Why would a letter from the Night's Watch elicit such a response from his father? He remembered hearing the rumor that his friend Domeric led 1,000 men across the wall on an expedition. No one knew why Domeric would do such a thing, and most people had guessed that the Boy Lord would die at the north of the wall, but Robb doubted that such a thing would happen. He had seen Domeric when he arrived in Winterfell while riding on top of his large black direwolf and had spent a good amount of time with him when he stayed in Winterfell before he went to participate in the Greyjoy War. And he knew that the boy didn't seem the type of person who would make foolish decisions and die such a wasteful death. No, there must be a good reason behind Domeric's expedition to the north of the wall. And if his guess was correct, then this letter probably contained some news about his friend. Otherwise, why else would the Night's Watch send a rider to deliver it instead of a simple raven? After his father finished reading it, he looked at the letter incredulously for a moment before he controlled his expression once again and looked at Maester Luwin. "Perhaps I need to meet this Night's Watch brother after all," his father said, and Maester Luwin gave a nod before going out to call Yoren. "What does the letter say, father?" he asked curiously once the maester had left the room, and his father looked at him with apprehension, and he thought that his father wouldn't tell him for a moment. Then his father let out a sigh and said, "Lord Domeric Bolton had come back from his expedition from the north of the wall." His father said and stayed silent after that, as if wondering how to say the next few words. He grew impatient and asked, And it seems that Lord Domeric Bolton had brought back some giants and wargs with him." It took a few moments for him to properly register what his father had said, and then his jaw dropped. Giants? Wargs? Weren't those things from myths? How did his friend Domeric find them in the north of the wall, and how he brought them back from the true north if this missive told the truth? While Robb was thinking about his friend and supposed achievements, Maester Luwin came back to his father's solar with the man named Yoren, a brother from Night's Watch. "Brother Yoren, the letter you brought has some hard-to-believe news. Is it true that Lord Bolton returned from his expedition to the wall with giants and wargs?" his father asked. "Yes, my lord. It is absolutely true. I saw them with my own eyes like all Night's Watch brothers in the Castle Black. There were dozens of giants with huge mounts. I think Lord Bolton called them mammoths, and some wildlings could control animals. Some of them even control bears and direwolves." Brother Yoren reported his father. "I see. I assume Lord Bolton arrived at the wall about 2 weeks ago. How was the Lord Bolton's men's situation? Did he lose most of his men? Did he stay at the wall to recover or leave for the Dreadfort?" his father asked again. Looks like his father is more interested in news about his friend Domeric than he thought. "Lord Bolton men mostly unharmed, my lord. From what I heard, they only lost a few scouts in the expedition, nothing more. Walton, Lord Bolton's war commander, even boasted at the feast that this expedition was a huge achievement that would go down in the history books." Brother Yoren dropped the shocking news. His friend Domeric went to the north of the wall and brought giants and wargs back with him while losing only a few men. This achievement was really something that could go down in the history book. He could already hear the songs that bards would sing about Domeric and his achievements. He really envied this friend of his. While he was sitting in his father's solar and learning, his friend was exploring the lands no other lord thought or dared to go. What? How could he lose only a few men after meeting with giants and wargs? Are you about this? And what is this feast you were talking about? His father asked after receiving the shocking news. No one really knows how Lord Bolton achieved that, my lord. But we all saw that both giants and wargs were looking at Lord Bolton with awe and respect. And about the feast, my lord. After Lord Bolton returned from his expedition to the Wall, he talked with Lord Commander and held a feast for his achievement that lasted a week. I heard that all the costs were reimbursed by Lord Bolton himself. Oh, and Lord Bolton and his men returned to Wall about 3 weeks ago. Not 2, my lord. Chapter 48 New Lands for Giants. First bonus chapter of the week. Winterfell Castle. POV of Eddard Stark. What do you mean Lord Bolton and his men returned to Wall 3 weeks ago? Then why did I receive the letter just now? It should be 2 weeks long journey for a lone messenger from Wall to Winterfell. Did something happen on your journey? Tell me. Eddard Stark asked Yoren with a frowned expression. Did this brother of Night's Watch slack on his journey? Or Lord Commander of the Wall didn't see this news as important enough to send a man to him as soon as possible? 3 weeks meant that if Lord Bolton left Wall quickly with his men, then he should have already arrived at the Dreadfort or about to arrive. Not like he was going to do something about that. But not doing it and not being able to do it are 2 different things. So eagerly awaited the answer from this brother of Night's Watch. My lord, it was because of the feast. Feast? Yes, my lord. Lord Bolton said that he could always celebrate his achievement with his men at the Dreadfort and wanted to celebrate with every man in Castle Black because he could only do it now. He sent his men after a night of stay. Only his 2 sworn shields stayed with him at the Wall. He feasted with us for a whole week. After a week, he left with his sworn shields to catch his men. Lord Commander gave me the letter after Lord Bolton departed. For a moment Lord Stark couldn't find words to say something. Was it deliberate? Did Lord Bolton hold a feast to delay news about his expedition until he reached his castle? Or he just wanted to celebrate after a long expedition? Am I thinking too much? Ha! Why is always Lord Bolton the one who gives me a headache? Bolton Lands. POV of Domeric Bolton. The land from this stream to that mountain in the distance is yours. Domeric said in old tongue to Mag the Mighty as his men brought wagon after wagon that was full of food while looking at the giants in disbelief and shock. Land. Ours. The giant said as he pointed at the stream and then the mountain. Yes, all this land is yours. You can do whatever you want within these lands. He slowly explained in old tongue so that the giant would understand what he said. Though you won't have to worry about food, as I'll continue to send that to you every 3 months. He explained and the giant gave another nod to him. Do not harm the men that I'll send to bring you food. Okay, he said and the giant gave him another nod and a simple use of legilimency told him that Mag at least understood what he said on a basic level. He gave a nod and the giant climbed on his mammoth before leaving for the place given to them to build a new shelter upon. I had not believed that they were true. His aunt's voice came from behind him once the giants and the mammoths had left. In hindsight, I should have believed you when you told me about them. He turned to look at her and found that she was still gazing at the giants with a disbelieving gaze. It's all right, he said. These are the kind of things that a person finds hard to believe until they see it for themselves. I do not doubt that any northern lord or lady who hears about giants would find it similarly hard to believe. And I'm even going to point out what the southerners think when they hear about this news. His aunt stayed silent for a while and they both watched the giants vanish behind the hill before she finally broke it. Giants, children of the forest, magic. It seems like I'm living in the age of the heroes once again, she said with a chuckle before she turned to look at him. You are serious about protecting them, aren't you? She asked, and he nodded. Yes, I'll protect them. And in return, they'll protect me and my lands when we are attacked by other people. You seem pretty sure that you'll be attacked by other people, she said with a raised eyebrow, and he gave a careless shrug. A prosperous land attracts attention, and not always the good kind. That is a simple truth of this world. And sooner or later I'll attract the bad kind of trouble as well. It's just a matter of time before we're attacked by other people. She gave him a nod and he turned to look at another woman who worked as a seamstress within Dreadfort. Did you take all of their measurements, Elena? He asked, and the woman gave him a shaky nod in return. Good. Walton, take the measurements from her and give them to Tobo Mott. I want him and the other blacksmiths to create armor for all the giants with those measurements. It'll be done, my lord, the man said with a feral grin and put the paper in his pocket, and Domeric took a deep breath before looking at the lands in front of him once again. You do know that other people might try to attack these giants, right? His aunt asked, and he nodded before picking up the weirwood saplings that he had brought with him in order to plant them around these lands. I know. That is why I'll plant these weirwood saplings and create a magical parameter around these lands. Parameter that would repel any human with the intent to harm these giants. You can do such a thing? His aunt asked, and he nodded. Easily. It'll take some time to grow so many weirwood trees, and the children would have to spend some time turning those weirwood trees into heart trees by carving the faces, but after that, I won't have to worry about other humans harming the giants. Is there anything that you cannot do? His aunt asked with barely hidden amusement, and he snorted. Many things, but let's return to the Dreadfort for now. After all, we have many things that we need to take care of. With that, he gave Walton a nod and then took his aunt's hands in his. And then with a tug and a twist, they were back in Dreadfort the next moment once again. Chapter 49 Bricks and Foods. Bolton Lands. POV of Domeric Bolton. Maester Wolken, he said in greeting as the maester came out of the room after finishing his daily teaching classes. Lord Bolton, the maester said and gave a cordial bow. What can I do for you? I'm here to ask you about the status of the clay that I gave you, he said as he glanced at the dozens of teenage boys and girls who had lost their parents in the Greyjoy Rebellion. They were now learning how to read and write under his maesters and would work as officials in his city in the future. After all, the more literate people there are working under him, the easier it'll be for him to run his land. Very well then, Lord Bolton. Please come with me, the maester said, and they followed him to another building in a distance where he could see some men working on mud and clay. This way, my lord, the maester said, and he followed the chubby man inside the large room where hundreds of different kinds of bricks were kept on the side. We followed your orders and created 25 different bricks from all the clay that you gave us, the maester said, and took out a paper kept under one of the bricks. We've not yet finished all the work, but 19 of the 25 bricks have already been prepared for your inspection, the maester said, and gave him the paper which showed which clay belonged to which location. Today he wanted to see the result of one of his recent projects. His city and his port town were under planning and some construction had already begun. He didn't want his city and port just another medieval settlement but something more. But for that, he needed more modern and durable materials. So, he started another project with the reward he got from the symbol of Deathly Hallows before he went on the expedition north of the wall. Actually, he got 3 rewards total before the expedition. A book called Building and Construction, a book called Earth Cuisine, and a book called Art of Time. All of them were white rewards, of course. His tattoo was still level 1 at that time, and still didn't get another reward. After his tattoo became level 2, its magic capacity also increased dramatically. Even with new heart trees in his land thanks to the children of the forest, the symbol still needed more time to fully recharge. But that meant that level 2 rewards would significantly be better. And if by some chance he didn't like the level 2 reward, he could get 2 level 1 instead. White level rewards that he got till today were only mundane knowledge, but that was what he needed most at the moment to develop his land. So he waited patiently. Anyway, he already started 2 projects with the knowledge that he gained from rewards. And now he came here to inspect one of them. He turned to Varko, who was standing silently in his magically enhanced armor, and said, Varko, try breaking 3 bricks from the group and give them a rating from 1 to 10. The man gave a nod and then went about breaking all the bricks one by one. A few of them broke easily. Most of them required some effort on his part to do so, and some were rather hard to break with the sword. By the end of his inspection, he didn't need Varko's response, as he already knew which bricks were the strongest out of them all. He looked down at the paper and found that the 3 bricks belonged to the group that was brought from the bank near Last River, a deep cavern in the lonely hills, and near the Broken Branch. The closest location was the Last River, but his relations with Karstarks were bad, and he didn't want to go to them for anything, so that was a no-go. After some deliberation, he finally decided that he would use clay from the banks of the Broken Branch River, which fell under the domain of the Hornwoods. Use the clay that I brought from the Broken Branch River and discard the rest, he told his maester. The brick is quite sturdy as it is, but it's not sturdy enough. Try adjusting the temperature. It is probably not as I instructed you before. You have a moon's worth of time to show me the results. he said, and the maester gave a quick nod before he gave the paper back to the maester. And how are the cooks' training going? I hope they are learning diligently, he asked maester. This was his second project about the reward he got before. The book called Earth Cuisine had all kinds of food from its old world. At first, he used the knowledge that he gained from the book to teach his castle cooks. And he was just happy that he could eat food from his old world again. But after he saw the castle folks' reaction to the foods made by Earth Cuisine, he changed his mind. Now, he wanted to make food from Earth to his land's charm point. So, he chose some trustworthy and loyal men and instructed his castle cooks to educate and teach them. When they learned all they needed, he would open restaurants, diners, and street stalls in his city and towns to realize his gourmet land project. They are learning diligently, and they are rather eager about it, my lord. They will not fail you. Maester replied to him. Good. I also want to start a new project, Maester Wolken. A new project, my lord? Chapter 50 Art of Time. Second bonus chapter of the week. Bolton Lands. POV of Domeric Bolton. A new project, my lord? Maester Wolken asked. Yes, I want to build a new workshop. This workshop will make a new luxury product. A new creation of mine. They will mostly assemble product pieces that will come from blacksmiths, woodcrafters, glass workshops, and maybe some leather craftsmen. But it is a work that requires finesse. So choose people according to their hand dexterity, he said. I will arrange everything according to your wishes, my lord. But what is this luxury product? Maester asked with an intrigued voice. Clocks and watches, Domeric said with a smirking smile on his face. Yes, Domeric thought it would be useful for his people and land to have clocks. With clocks, there would be time management, synchronization, predictability, advanced cost management, and many more developments in his lands that increase efficiency. And how did he know how to create clocks and watches? Of course, because of knowledge inside the book called Art of Time. When he saw the book for the first time, his heart skipped a beat. He thought he got a book about time magic, but alas, it was a book about all kinds of time measuring methods and devices from his old world. He was disappointed at that time. After all, he knew the Tempest spell. All he had to cast the spell and he would know the time. So, he discarded the book at that time because of the workload of his other projects. But after a while, he realized that measuring time would bring so much to his land. And also he wanted to use these clocks and watches as gifts to strengthen relations with other houses in the north and even with southern houses when the time came. And when the clocks and watches are damaged or broken. Clocks? Watches? I don't think I heard them before, my lord, Maester Wolken said after thinking a while. Because they are my new creations. Basically, they are devices that show the time. Like candles and hourglasses but more advanced. You will see when the time comes. Just arrange the workshop and workers now. And give these plans to maesters who are responsible for building the city and port town. I want to build it in both settlements, he said, and gave some parchments that included drawings and plans of a building. Maester took the parchments and examined them for a while before frowning and said, My lord, this kind of high and thin will be hard to build. It might even collapse before we finish. Why do we need this kind of building in our city center and port town center? It looks like a watchtower but much higher. Well, this building is a clock tower. They will be seen by everyone from the city and the port town. This way everyone in the city can know and measure the time. And I will also deploy some men at the top of the clock tower, the watch city. If there was a fire in the city, these men alarm the necessary people. As for the risk of collapse, just tell maesters to follow the plans exactly and everything will be fine. Domeric said and didn't elaborate anymore. Yes, my lord. I will as you said, Maester said and left while thinking about this strange building and time-measuring devices that Lord Bolton said. Dreadfort Castle. POV of Domeric Bolton. You're going to the Hornwoods once again? His aunt asked, looking slightly concerned. I need clay and coal from them in order to make bricks, he said with a shrug. Coal? They don't have any coal mines. His aunt said with a frown as she tried to work her memory. That's because they don't. At least not yet, he said. What do you mean? She asked. I wanted to search for coal within my lands as coal is one of the best fuels available to us at the moment. But there were no coal deposits within my lands, he said with a shrug. When I finally found the coal deposits, I realized that it was not within my domain. And, do those deposits fall under the Hornwoods? She asked, understanding the context, and he nodded. They have 3 different coal deposits within their lands. Do you understand what that means? He asked. What? she asked with a little annoyance. It means 3 different coal mines, 3 different sources of fuel, and 3 more reasons why I plan to create a supply line from the Hornwood lands to Dreadfort. He said, after all, we are already buying timber from them for paper and ships, and I need the coal from their lands. So why not buy clay from their lands as well? Wood, coal, dirt. It seems like the Hornwoods have everything, she said with a groan, and he shook his head. Not at all. He replied, we have far more iron mines within our lands than the rest of the North and Riverlands combined. Not to mention the silver and copper mines. In fact, we have many things that the Hornwoods don't and probably will never have. And with the creation of the new factories within my lands, our wealth and power will only continue to grow. If you don't bankrupt yourself first, she said with a sigh, and he let out a chuckle. Don't worry. It may sometimes look like I'm wasting my wealth on unnecessary things like the expedition north of the wall, selling the Valyrian blade in exchange for skilled men, or using the maesters under me to educate people. But believe me, all of the things that I do will bring huge returns to our house in the future. His aunt gave him a nod, and he nodded back before he rode on Grim and left for Hornwood with 50 of his most trusted men along with Raxa and Varco.